Hey, welcome to episode 168 of the Titanforge podcast. I'm Dranos, joined by Tuttles.
That number might be wrong. Hold
That
on.
number might be wrong. There's no way.
That number is wrong. It's 169.
Oh, that what?
Nice.
You picked such a bad episode to have the wrong number ready for. This is catastrophic. We also have, of course, Trell.
Hello.
Hello. All right, well, so this week we have a few things to talk about. We have new affixes. That's going to be a lot of what we talk about. We have new dungeons, a little bit to talk about from just the dungeon affixes testing.
Okay.
We also have a few smaller topics to check in with, and we also have a lot of Q&A questions that we will do at the end of this episode. So let's start off with the kind of smallish topics, then we'll do affixes.
Yeah.
First one is MDI finals this weekend, if anybody is interested. Those are going on this weekend, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Some very powerful teams competing in this one, so
Oh yeah.
do
Is that the same
in.
time frame as the cups and time trials and all that?
Yes, yeah, it is very, very similar. Like,
They had a bit longer to practice.
yeah, but like the
Oh,
time
yeah.
of the day, right? It's like 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Pacific.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
yeah.
Exact same time.
12
Your
Central
time.
Time,
Yeah.
US. Okay.
You just had daylight savings, right? So they're back on the same.
I think
Same
EU
schedule
are
as us,
9
right?
hours behind again, yeah, or
Yeah. Okay.
ahead. Yeah. So
I'm looking forward to that. There's the Monka versus Echo, whatever match that ends up being. I'm very hyped.
Please call them by their new name. Mandatory.
Oh, MDR.
MDR, yeah,
Yeah.
mandatory. Picked up Monka, so new org in the field. That's cool. We've also got Donuts, America's Last Great Hope, in in the bracket as well. We'll see how long they're going to be able to stay there. I believe
America's
all
only
the
hope.
way. Yeah.
Did you? I don't want to spoil your pick, but did you pick them to win?
I picked them as a runner-up, I think, in an extremely aggressive pick. That
Yeah.
not especially defensible. I think I think realistically their ceiling is probably like third. Third would be great for them. Fourth is probably good. Sixth is probably realistic.
Any surprise picks you think we'll see this weekend? Any hot takes, perhaps?
Yeah, the specs are going to be interesting. Like,
Yeah.
we need to see some AF lock, some Destro lock, some Prot Paladin, Resto. I guess Resto
Yeah.
Shaman already has been seeing a lot. I don't
I
know.
think we'll see a
Maybe
lot
some
of those.
Hunter.
Hunter, perhaps?
Ooh, Hunter did
Yeah.
just get nerfed though. Hunter is doing a lot of damage though.
Yeah.
There
I do think we're
are
gonna see some Warlock for sure.
there are also the Primordial Stones now that will be this is going to be played on the current patch. Primordial Stones, a large topic of last week's show. Pretty settled. It's settled down on the Primordial Stones since last show. There hasn't been any further really balanced changes, changing percents around. There's been a few bug fixes to different stones since last week, but it's kind of settled into, I would say most DPS get a small benefit from putting on the Onyx Amulet compared to a regular ring. Some DPS, like very stat heavy casters, don't like it at all still.
Yeah.
Like Warlocks, some Warlock specs still don't want it over, but only over like 418 socketed stuff, right? Is where that's better. And then there's some DPS like Windwalkers that are just like all about it, right? If you're a spec that doesn't care too much about stats, you are super interested in the Onyx Amulet, right?
Do you think there's a
Yeah.
chance that we see a team run no healer this weekend? Because
Maybe,
the
so-
amulet is doing enough healing.
Yeah, so the gem combinations, right? We're seeing there's kind of that prophetic Twilight, Desirous Blood, plus a third combo that's pretty popular.
Yeah.
But you could play Exuding Steam, on your DPS, right, and get heals out of that.
Yeah, somehow.
So it's
The-
possible.
The problem with the damage gems for MDI content is that I think all the like third gem slot that you put, like the Storm Infused one or the Freezing one as your third gem, that tends to hit not your primary target, as far as I know. And so like in MDI, there's almost always like a prio target. Like you're pulling onto boss, you're pulling onto whatever trash mob has the most health. Like that's the target that needs to take damage from something like that. And a lot of times it just doesn't hit it. So I think like the only time we'd really see these super experienced teams play those would probably be on tyrannical keys for like strictly single target encounters, like maybe court,
I
maybe
could see that.
tyrannical Alcathar, since it's 23. I don't know.
But that's just their DPS, right? Like obviously their healer and their tank are going to be benefiting somewhat from the rings.
Well, yeah, I mean, only for boss fights, I think. So if it's
Sure.
worth it to wear that for the rest of like the trash pulls, because like even in Algathar, there's so many trash pulls that I don't know if I'd say the ring would be worth it on a tank.
That's
But I'd have to do a
that's
run.
so interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I mean you can play the shield combo on the tanks, right? The frost shield, the earth shield, and the damage
Yeah.
when shielded proc. But yeah, I mean stats are good too,
Is that
right?
good?
I I think it's probably better than stats still,
It-
but maybe not.
The other weird one for maybe like tanks is like the interrupt one, right? Like
Yeah,
interrupt does AoE damage. That thing's beans, isn't it?
I think that's beans. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious if that works with like prop allies stuff. Like with Press Divine Toll, does it proc on every single thing that shield interrupts? But I mean, even if that's the case, I haven't seen anybody wear it, so I don't know. I'm not sure how good it is.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. That would be cool if it was though. If it was good.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess.
All right. So yeah, that's Primordial Stones. It has kind of calmed down from last week. I will say still not a system that excites me super much, but it's settling down. It's just gonna be fine. I mean, I still don't like playing with less stats, but you know, it's whatever. It's not a big deal. It is what it is, as they say.
It do be like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that are what they are, there is a Twitch drop that's going to be happening starting today until, I guess not a Twitch drop. There's a Twitch drop as well that's going on, but that's about to end. But there is if you have Twitch Prime, you can get a bear, a big battle bear that was, I guess a TCG, TCG mount, although not a particularly sought after one, but yeah, so make sure you claim this if you have Twitch Prime on Twitch, like up in the top right. You can click on the little loot button and go claim your bear at some point in the next month.
In addition to that, if you have Twitch Prime, please subscribe to my Twitch page. I need it.
Please, Tuttles
Please.
desperately needs your Prime subbies.
I've actually negotiated you a Blizzard bear if you prime to my channel. I have carefully
Wow.
negotiated you a battle bear, please.
All right. Okay, so let's go into the new affixes. Let's talk about these new affixes on the level 7 row. So I guess first of all, what is going away is Quaking, Volcanic, and Grievous. Those affixes are going away. Explosive is getting reworked. We'll talk about that later. But replacing Quaking, Explosing, and Quaking, Volcanic, and Grievous is Afflicted, Entangling, and Incorporeal. So I guess let's just go through these one at a time. We can start with Afflicted. Afflicted are friendly spirits that spawn. They spawn with low health and a disease, a poison, and a curse on them. You can either cleanse them or top them off with heals, and then they go away, which is nice. Or if they don't go away, they hit you with a very nasty 100% haste reduction for 10 seconds. So that is the downside of doing that if you don't do the affix.
Can you make these bigger?
Yes, I think so. Let's see. Yeah.
Oh, bang. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
How many spawned in that clip?
2.
So.
Oh, you see where they're gonna spawn. Okay, I see.
Yeah, you see where they're gonna spawn a little bit in advance. It seems like this and oh god, what's the other affix? Yeah, this and Incorporeal seem like they spawn relative to the amount of mobs that you have pulled.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are like branch offs of explosive.
Yes, they're kind of
systems.
Yes.
So this is a +10, and it looks like Squishy in this clip for Wowhead, like wogged one and dispelled the other. Yeah.
They have so I've actually done testing on all of these affixes so far. Not like it wasn't like that extensive, but the ability to be able to heal these up is actually not that bad. And in addition to that, if you basically have any other player plus the healer that have an off-target dispel, say you're playing with a prop paladin, for example, that plus the healer is like a perfect combo, being able to get all the afflicted mobs healed up pretty quickly. 124k HP is like really not that bad. Maybe some healers like Resto Druid are going to struggle a little bit more because their healing takes like ramp up time. But like in reality, this is pretty easy to deal with. Now, there's some weird stuff with smart heals on the afflicted souls, correct? I think Charles was saying something about that before. What this
Yeah,
one?
so it sounds like they're kind of like totem kind of mobs, but for healers, where your smart heals like revival and vampiric embrace just don't hit them at all.
Yeah.
Hopefully that gets changed in some way, but I think that is a potential problem with balance between healers, and then also the fact that they might be kind of hard to target in a big pool. Like I like that's kind of an issue that a lot of healers say all the time is like NPCs that you have to heal are usually like a problem with visuals and targeting. Like maybe giving them boss frames somehow would be good, or some kind of like
Mm,
on your UI clickable area.
I think. Yeah, I think that the Afflicted and Incorporeal kind of have a similar issue of like seeing them spawn and where they spawn is not always just in a great location. That kind of sucks.
I also worry about afflicted. The only thing about that is I think it's going to be hard to get the tuning right. Like it's either going to be really easy where one heal just gets rid of them, just like current explosive. You just
Yeah.
like tap any low damage ability and you kill the explosive, or it might be tuned too hard where once you scale into plus 20 and above, like that clip was a plus 10 for reference. Once you get to like 20 and above, it's going to take the healer way too many GCDs just to heal one up, let alone two or three or four. Like that could be a really big problem. I don't know how they're going to nail tuning on that.
Yeah, it's tough as well with these sorts of affixes that scale in intensity with the pull sizing, right? Where you're pulling more mobs, so you're getting more spirits to spawn, but you have like so you if you want to go from fighting five enemies to if you want to go from pulling a single pull to a double pull, it just becomes like increasingly more difficulty from the affix, right? And
Yeah.
especially in an affix like this, right? The first afflicted that spawns in each pack is dealt with for free by a dispel, right? From your healer, because every healer has like a dispel that will work against the first afflicted, and then like maybe the second one you've got an off dispel or something. But then if you're having 3 or 4 of these spawn and you're in a big pull, then you maybe also are having other diseases and poisons and stuff going out. So I worry that this is going to be one of those affixes where sort of like the Shadowlands AoE cap when it came in, it's like it just changes the risk reward calculus of pulling extra mobs so badly that the best way to deal with afflicted weeks would be to pull small or maybe line of sight these afflicteds as they spawn. Maybe fight in a spot where you can just LOS the afflicteds and ignore them like you do
Yeah,
with explosives on some pulls. But
yeah.
I will say that concern aside, it seems like from the testing I've been watching, and I haven't been able to test any of this yet myself because it only just came out and there was raid testing, but it seems like this one looks pretty fun at current tuning on PTR. Like it seems
This
like
one's fine.
yeah, it seems good. Seems like a good affix. And
Oh,
the
something else that
yeah.
just occurred to me about this is like let's say they made smart heals hit it. Like, what if you don't want your smart heals to hit it and you're like trying to wild growth all 5 players in your group
Right.
because you're fighting like a storm elemental mob kind of thing where it's just pulsing damage, right? And then 3 of your wild growths hit the NPCs instead, and now you're just like shit out of luck on healing your group.
Or you convoke and your full convoke goes into the fucking 0 HP mob.
Yeah, like stuff like that is going to be pretty bad, I'd say. Like
I
that's
don't
heavy
know.
RNG
Well,
for
that's
healers.
if they get hit by smart heals, right? But they don't currently, right?
They don't
So
currently, so you
yeah.
shouldn't be able to even
Yeah.
invoke it.
Well, that's the problem. Is I think you either have to have that as our current problem, which is basically going to force people into having off dispels in the party, which is kind of restrictive in my opinion. Or you make smart heals hit it, and then it's like a different kind of problem. But I don't know where they
I
want to land with that.
what I see is like there are enough classes. Okay, there are enough classes in the game that actually have a dispel that this isn't any worse than raging.
Yeah, I think that this. I mean, I think it should be better than like the raging evoker to no evoker comparison. It's like, okay, if you're pulling and only 2 of these are spawning, right? Your healer can dispel 1, and then they have to put probably 2 globals into the other one, right? Like even if you're a Resto Druid, right? Like if you rejuve it right at the start of its spawn and then hit it with a regrowth sometime in the next 4 seconds or whatever, it's probably handled. So
If that's the case, then that's good. I think that's
yeah,
fine.
and so I think that this is not going to be too.
So
I feel like this is
it'll-
like a better version, a better play pattern of the healer explosive play pattern, right? It's like healers do almost all the work with this. DPS can help, but like
now
they help with utility buttons rather than just by doing damage to something different than what they normally would. And also it seems like it's just kind of nicer than old explosive as well. So I think this is I don't know, this affix seems like a thumbs up for me at least.
Okay, I'm gonna give this thumbs up as well, but I think that there is an issue that I have with this is like the clarity on this affix that Trell kind of identified earlier of like, oh yeah, it's particularly whenever you have like a big pack of trash, it's like really difficult to see them, right? Or get them targeted in a timely manner to be able to, either dispel them or whatever. Because like,
Is it going to be that bad though? I mean, they spawn far away from from the mobs you're fighting. They have a
okay,
big animation before they spawn,
yeah,
and then they have a 10-second cast time.
I mean, we have a 3 mob pull here, right? Like,
Yeah, that's true. But like, look how far away they're spawning from the mobs they're in combat with here. This is like 15 yards.
think about the first pull knockout or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, first bullet not good. If you're fighting what 7, I guess if you're fighting the 12, then
Yeah,
that's a lot.
You double pull that, right?
And that but like that's the kind of pull where like if the problem with that pull is that there's too many of them to realistically have enough globals to heal all of them, then yeah, I
That's
hate
an
that.
issue.
But if the
Yeah.
problem with them is
Yeah.
like you're not able to see where they're spawning, I don't know. I don't feel like I feel like this animation is huge and very very readable.
Okay.
So
Maybe
I
there's
don't.
a-
I personally think that the much more the thing I'm more worried about is just getting overwhelmed by number of spawns and not enough globals.
Yeah. I think there might be a cap already on the number of spawns. I read
Yeah.
somewhere that someone thought there was. I don't know
So
if that's true.
it seems
but-
like you're only ever seeing in testing they got a maximum of 3 to spawn at a time in large pools, which 3 is still a lot,
good.
right? Like three mobs that you're probably gonna wipe if an afflicted cry goes off, right? Maybe not, but in a big scary pull, I mean, I guess maybe you can live this with big defensives. 100% haste reduction. Your tank is going to be in a lot of pain unless they're like a brewmaster. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, all in all, I actually do think this is the better affix that they introduced.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I
far.
I think this is a I think this is actively a good affix with current version, and I would be down to see some tweaks on those things. But I think even if this was shipped as is, I'm pretty sure this
Yeah.
would make the game more fun,
Yeah.
not less. Which I'm not so sure about some of the others, but entangling is another affix that I'm not super. I don't think it's too bad either. This one is. It had a very worrying description. But the way it actually plays out is so I will say this is one where of the 38 specs in the game, if you're playing like a priest or a caster of some kind that doesn't have like a mobility button that's good, especially if you're playing one that like if you're trying to do keys as a demonology warlock, for instance, entangling is going to be unbelievably annoying for you. But for everybody else, I think it's going to be not too bad. Basically, you spawn a root thing under you. Now, the annoying thing about this is that it's kind of hard to see. Like, this is something where absolutely, if there's a lot of mobs, you're going to not notice this thing spawning under you. And you have to run away from it to break a snare that's connecting you to it. You get 10 yards away from it, you break the 50% slow. Otherwise, though, you get stunned for 3 seconds. So you have 8 seconds to get 10 yards away from this thing that's slowing you. It is kind of hard to see. You do get a debuff while it's happening, though. So this is going to be something where if they don't make this more visual clarity that you are currently affected by it, you're going to have like an air horn playing on you while you have this.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest issue for me is that I feel like weak auras are mandatory for entangling just in general. I think for like from a DPS perspective and particularly from a range perspective, this affix is going to be pretty easy once you do have those weak auras that are available to you. But from like a tank perspective, I could see this actually being really annoying because tanks don't always have the ability to be able to, move mobs, or you want a boss tanked in a specific spot, or you want some think about the first boss, Laymore and Azure Vault. Like, all right, you move that boss around to make sure that you get the boss frontal position perfectly, and now we haven't like if you get entangling at a bad time, what is the tank realistically supposed to do in some of those spots? And that seems a bit odd. Now I wonder if they could change it to maybe, a 1% slow in a 5-yard range for you to be able to break it, if that would be a bit more fair.
A 1%
Well,
slow and a 5
You have 8 seconds to clear it, right?
Or not a slow at all, perhaps.
and a 5 yard. So literally just move 5 yards and this thing snaps.
Yeah, but like the problem is like there's no parity among roles for this, and this one obviously.
But I mean, you
negatively
have
impacts
8
the tanks
seconds
in
to
this.
do it, right? Like if you're tanking Laymore and this thing spawns, right? Like either it's close enough to the thing that you don't have to like you can break after, or it's far enough away that you can break first, right? Like I don't know. I mean, I will say like in very worst case, if it's like exactly 7 seconds before Laymore's smash or whatever, and this spawns on you and you notice it slowly, yeah, that's gonna kind of suck. But I don't think it's unplayable
actually
in that
okay.
spot. Yeah.
Thinking through like the tank scenarios, like I can think of in my head, I think it's actually 8 seconds is enough to like either do it before or after or something is coming. But
Yeah,
That's
it is
so
going to be kind of
bad.
annoying for like moving trash and bosses. Just like people are going to be used to a certain thing, and then this week rolls around, and all of a sudden you have to like move stuff at times. And that's obviously a little bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
fine.
I think when it comes to like, oh, this affix is here and we have to do something different than we do on other weeks, as long as it's not like, as long as the thing that's different isn't awful, time consuming, or making the dungeon way more likely to deplete, I think that's the point of affixes, right? So I don't think it's going to be that bad, basically, TLDR. I think it's going to be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat.
All right. And so next up, we have Incorporeal. And so basically what Incorporeal does is it summons adds relative to the amount of mobs that you have pulled, kind of similar to what we saw from Afflicted earlier. These mobs have no typing, which means that you can cast pretty much all CC abilities on them, such as like Hibernate, Turn Evil, Banish, Cyclone, that kind of thing can all be casted on side of these.
Wait, they have no typing, but you can still hibernate them?
They have no typing at all.
Mhm.
So which means
like
that
all mob types.
yes, they're all mob
okay,
types.
all mob types? That's cool.
Yeah. I guess technically they have mob typing of everything as opposed to nothing, right? And so, oh shoot, wrong thing. I'm going to close that out. But basically, what this initially read as was, while in combat, incorporeal beings appear and attempt to destabilize players at spells that reduce their damage and healing done, and then like you're supposed to be able to CC them, but you're only able to CC them with targeted CC effects, which is not great, I will admit. Not my favorite.
Yeah. So in this clip, you see there's like 3 spawning over there. Like that would require 3 individual CCs. Not any AoE CC works right now. Like Incap Roars, Sweep, Ring of Peace does nothing. You have to like hard cast Paralyze or
Interrupt.
Banish, or actually commit an interrupt that you'd probably need for the pack anyway.
Yeah.
Like yeah, the current iteration, this is definitely the worst so far. I don't even know, like it's so restrictive because if it's kept this way, which hopefully it's not, obviously, but if it is kept this way, then you'd have to have a class with a spammable CC, and that would just be their entire job the whole dungeon, like spam cast, Banish, or Cyclone, or Hibernate, just basically the entire dungeon. It's kind of like old Explosive. Or current
Yeah.
Explosive.
Yeah.
I like that there's a lot of answers to them. I just don't like that you need to use so many answers on each of them, right? Like, if 4 spawn and you have 4 active for like 20 seconds each, right? They're like overlapping with each other. They have an 8-second cast, so each one's going to need 3 interrupts on them. You can either kick late or hard CC, but if you kick early, you're going to have to kick them again. And you can't AoE CC them either. So,
yes.
Oh god, dude.
And stuff like Paralyze and Imprison, like the one-time CCs that have a CD, they'll just get broken because they're going to be near the pack anyway.
So I
like
have a question then. Would you be okay if it was similar to Razageth? Razageth Sparks.
Yeah.
Where it did get a hit by AoE CC. I think that's a good starting point. And on top of that, like if you interrupt it once, it just goes away. Would you be okay with that?
I think the Razageth Sparks, even the like mythic mode version of Razageth Sparks, where it's like you have to hit each one, like it has 3 stacks or whatever, and once those go, like each time it respawns with 1 less stack. I think that could be maybe even a fine version of this affix as well.
Not three.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it depends on the spawn rate, right? Like the problem here is that if you're pulling 2 or 3 packs together and you're getting 4 of these active simultaneously, like 4 that each require 3 single target stops on them.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's not normally,
dude.
That's not doable.
I think the current iteration, if they either allowed AoE CC and if they did both these things, if they allowed AoE CC to affect them and they reduced the duration by like half of their lifespan, I think that'd probably be okay. I think that if you kick them at all, they should probably just die. Like one kick committed to an affix rather than the trash pull is already pretty rough. I think we lost Stratnos.
He's gone again, but I think overall the correct approach, at least for Blizzard, should probably be to get them to just despawn on getting like interrupted by one thing. Now, I do think that something that they did that was smart is whenever this goes off, you don't take any damage from it. Your damage and healing is reduced by 50%.
So you're not wiping instantly, but there
Yeah.
are implications of having 50% reduced damage. I mean, like the pack is going to last a lot longer. You know, you may end up wiping because the pull ends up lasting too long. That is something that it can happen, but at least it's better than you take, 45% of your
that
HP
is-
in damage.
That is kind of a death sentence for like that. That's okay in general, I think, but that's a death sentence for certain tank classes like DK. 50% less healing is really
Yeah.
bad on DK.
Sure. I think that makes sense. Okay, moving on. The last thing that they did, so we got 3 new affixes, which are incorporeal, entangling, and afflicted. We removed 3 affixes, which were, I guess we probably should have stated this at the beginning of the show, which were grievous, volcanic, and quaking. All 3 of those are out. And then they said that they reworked explosive. And what the rework to explosive ended up being is, and I don't have this pulled up here, but what the rework to explosive ended up being was that explosives spawn less frequently. Oh gosh, we're gonna have the overlay messed up. It's okay though. They spawn less frequently, but have more HP, and they've already been nerfed at time of recording this, HP wise. So on a 15, they had previously 426,000 health, and that's already been nerfed by 30% to 298k. But even still, this is a ridiculous amount of HP. Welcome back, Trinos.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
Like even okay, so 500k on an explosive orb is already pretty ridiculous. Even
Yeah.
taking that down to 300k at a low key level where it's only going to go up with scaling, that is still way too much damage to invest in like a totem type of mob, which are explosive orbs. And what I mean by totem is it only gets affected by like targeted spells, kind of like the problem we were talking about with incorporeal a second ago.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of classes can't even do damage to totem type of mobs. Like I think I was playing Havoc Demon Hunter on beta, and I couldn't even damage the totem on the last boss of Brackenhide. Like there was nothing I could press that was strictly single target. It would just
Yeah. I mean, Giles, what do you think about the explosive changes? I think that this is like the big loser of all the affixes, right?
Oh yeah, this is this is not it. It reminds me just sort of like of old Quaking,
Sure.
where you would just take like a bunch of free damage over the course of the dungeon unavoidably, and I feel like that's what this new explosive is going to be, right? Is like you just don't swap to these, you take the damage, you let them blow up, and your healer heals you, and you can do the keys like 2 levels lower than you otherwise could because there's way more damage happening, but you can just still do those keys and your healer can just heal you.
The insane thing to me about this one is that this is basically what the old problem with explosive was, is that they had too much health.
Yeah.
Only a few classes could really deal with them, and it was almost always a rogue. Like the outlaw rogue would have to kill the explosive orbs, or else they would go off. Like nobody else could kill the orbs. And they basically brought that problem back. And they do have a longer cast time now, so there's more chance for classes with ramp to actually contribute to them. But I think they need to make them hittable by AoE abilities at the very least to make this like a solution.
So they got to change from 8 to 10 seconds, right? Cast time? I think that's
6 to 8.
6 to 8? Okay. I don't know. I think that explosive is just a move in the wrong direction. I think that I think the feedback was like, and I think that the reason that they went to this method is Blizzard was getting feedback that it was too much of a healer affix, and so they were like, oh, how do we make it less of a healer affix, and how do we make it more of a group affix? And I think that this is like, I understand their rationale for changing it this way, but the affix has got to go if it's going to be like this. It can't just be something where only a few classes can even participate. And your best case scenario is to not play this week, because this week is impossible if you, I don't know, don't have the absolute perfect comp for this one affix set.
Yes, even with the health reduction by 30% now, if I had to guess, this is not a week that you play unless they nerf this by more than half of the health that it's on right now.
Yeah.
On PTR.
I don't know.
Maybe that's too, but even still, like, it's just so not worth to target them at the rate that they're spawning as well, right? Like, I mean,
dude, you're just gonna commit so much.
Yeah.
Like, the problem is, like, too, you're not going to be cleaving. They're a totem. Like, you have to be full single targeting these mobs that have 500k HP. Like, all right,
sure. What if
sure.
these were just like AoEable, but then they had the text of like taking reduced damage from AoE, but they still actually were AoE cleave on, cleave offable, which they're not right now, right?
You are still going to run into the issue where, like, you're not going to be able to get these killed off in time, even if you're AoEing, right?
Yeah, but like I guess the problem with all those mechanics is that like if you like I'm imagining one where like okay, if you're Fist of Fury primary targeting it, it hits it, right? Like that's what I want to happen.
Like a meteor
Yeah.
or something. Okay.
Yeah, but I guess that they don't have that doesn't really exist, so I don't know.
I don't know, man. Like this affix needs a change. Like, do you guys have any ideas for like constructive feedback for like how they should be looking to change this?
I mean, I have nothing because for years, all of us were always like, please make the explosives just have 1 HP, make them one-shottable by any GCD. And that's how it finally ended up. And we were all so happy about it. But I think there's no in between. I think they're either tuned to have too high of health to where one class is going to suffer and like there's only a couple classes that can kill it like it is now.
Yeah.
Or it's so little health that it ends up being a healer affix at the highest level of play because that's just the most efficient way to do it.
I mean, it was a big damage loss before. Like to target explosives on your DPS was already like a damage loss in keys as it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Hear me out. 10-second fuse timer.
Okay.
Spawning substantially less than they currently do. It has 5 health. 5 health, okay?
Yeah.
And it takes maybe 4 health. And it takes 1 damage from every ability, every global you put into it or auto attack. But each person can only hit it once. So you need every single person in the group to swap and hit each explosive.
Every single
once.
one. Ooh.
And maybe they spawn half as often as they currently do. But it's like the group has to defuse the bomb each time it shows up by hitting it once.
Oh man.
The issue is like,
know.
dude, okay,
Give
so
it a longer cast time, a lower spawn frequency, but then it's like not a. I mean, it is a healer affix,
Okay.
but like not just a healer affix. I guess maybe you just let it explode in that world, but make it more lethal if it explodes then, and make it.
Okay, I like
easier
your
to
idea.
defuse.
If you make it 3 people have to hit it.
Yeah,
me-
3 or 4, maybe
Three
not 5,
people.
because 5 is obviously like a little bit too.
Yeah,
me,
there's always like 2 people that can't hit orbs. Like tank is doing something ridiculously important, or healer's doing something across the room, and some orb spawn. Like that happens quite a bit.
dude, I mean, like look at this POV. We have how many mobs in this pool? 3. We have 3 mobs and we get 2 explosives at a time twice. Like the amount that they're still spawning is just way too high. And like, I mean, you even say some party chart. How are you supposed to keep up? Genuinely, I don't even think it's possible to keep up with the amount that are spawning. Maybe if you could, if we change to this Dratnos method, you could only have one that spawns every 15 or
it's like 1
20
every 20
seconds. Yeah, like,
1 explosive.
that's.
I mean, honestly, like with the current health that they have as well, if it was 1 every 20 seconds, that would maybe be fine as well.
You can't kill them right now. You can't even kill them with the current HP right now.
Right, 1 every 20 seconds. But I mean, the problem is
Yeah,
that with it
would
the
be
way it is
better,
now,
yeah.
no matter how frequently it spawns, you always just let them all go off, right? So 1 every 20 seconds would just make it pretty easy because you would just let it go off and a lot less would go off. But if it was 1 every 20 seconds with current health values, but did more damage when it exploded, maybe? Or like gave you a damage down when it exploded? I don't know.
I don't know. They can't be spawning relative to the amount of mobs that pulled. And like this goes for the same as Incorporeal. You cannot have them summoning relative to the amount of mobs. We kind of breezed by Incorporeal whenever you DC. Did you want to have anything to say about this before we moved on? Dennis?
On what? Incorporeal spawn rate?
Just Incorporeal in general, just the affix as a whole.
Yeah, I think good ideas involved here, but certainly just the numbers of the AoE immunity on these things is really obnoxious because like I don't want to be using my stuff like Hodge and Stormbolt on these mobs. Those are the fun part about M Plus is using those on like mobs for me, and like having having those things get taxed even more. I don't like. So I like the idea of being able to hit them with like niche stuff like Turn Evil and Hibernate or whatever. I like the idea of being able to Stormbolt them, but I don't like the idea of not being able to Shockwave them or War Stomp them or Intimidating Shout them, right? Like, I feel like if they're going to spawn at this frequency, they have to be AoE CC.
Yeah.
Or they could spawn a quarter as often as they're doing right now, and that's also maybe fine. Or they could not require 3 kicks each, but I don't know. I mean, like, I could see, like, this is another one where I feel like it needs a more than 50% change in what it currently is before it's good.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Oh shoot. Hello, Dratnos.
Hello. Yeah, that's my phone crop.
Wide
Okay.
Dratnos. Yeah. This is your
Ooh,
phone crop.
progress. Ooh.
Perfect. Not perfect. Hold on. Where are you sitting? Stop moving. Okay.
A classic prank.
We're good with this, I guess. Good enough. Okay. So what do we want to go to next? Do we have tip of the week, I guess? We can get,
Yes. Okay.
or I guess we could probably sum up how we feel about the affixes, I think, before moving on to tip of the week.
Okay. Also, should we talk about Volcanic, Grievous, and Quaking?
We mentioned that whenever you DC'd.
Okay. Yeah. A fond farewell to those affixes.
So I guess what are just some of the feedback points that we want to give for these new affixes plus explosive for Afflicted? What are we thinking?
Afflicted and Entangling IMO are like almost there, just need tuning range.
Sure.
And in fact, maybe even just already there. And then like Afflicted might already just be there, IMO, and Entangling could use like if they don't want us to use a weak aura, which wouldn't be the end of the world, I think putting a little bit more of an indicator when your character is being entangled would be good.
I could be down.
And then the other two, Explosive and Incorporeal, are ones that I think instead are like, okay, these are big change land.
Okay. Carl, you wanna give some feedback on Incorporeal and Explosive then about what should be changed overall?
Yeah, well, I mean, we mentioned lots of stuff we want to see changed about those, I think, but I think the general bad atmosphere about this from the public is that like we all wanted affixes to be less impactful, and then they basically upped the impact, at least from Incorporeal and Explosive, especially Explosive. Explosive is real bad.
So
But,
Ian said in an interview with Bellular that if we're playing the affixes as opposed to playing the dungeons, they have failed, and I feel like
yeah,
sure,
exactly.
the affixes that they removed were kind of fine to get removed, but the ones that they replaced them with are still, gimmicky minigame style affixes.
I mean, I don't even think they should have gotten rid of Volcanic and Grievous in terms of which affixes were the most overwhelming. Like Bolstering, for one thing, is probably the one that should have gone. Maybe even Sanguine. It's just like you play for Sanguine the entire dungeon if you're playing that affix. And then the Incorporeal and Explosive are now as hard or harder than Sanguine or Bolstering. So it's now like every single week's going to feel extremely difficult with the affixes as of current tuning.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I think that Afflicted and Entangling are in a good place in terms of impact, but yeah, Incorporeal and Explosive are definitely going to take over the dungeons / make the dungeon about them / make it so that you can't pull enough packs to have interesting stuff happening with the dungeon if you're the kind of group that like has fun by doing that. Now, obviously, like pulling a lot of mobs at once is not something that's for everybody. And anytime any high-end Mythic Blesser talks about it, everybody's like, oh, just don't pull everything all at once. But like, I don't know, that's the fun part for us. And pulling twice as many mobs for twice as much danger is like a fun trade-off. Pulling twice as many mobs for 10 times as much danger, though, is currently what Incorporeal and Explosive are offering. And that's like not that's like the Shadowlands AoE cap experience, and that was really, really negative.
Sure. Okay.
At least.
Oh,
So,
you know what?
yeah.
One of my healer friends in my guild said they'd rather see Grievous and Explosive. I wonder how people think about that. Like, what if they just ditched Explosive and brought back Grievous?
Grievous is tough because like it's had a pretty different identity in different seasons, just kind of depending on like the base tuning of the dot, right? Like how nasty is this dot relative to healer throughput right now? Because I feel like right now it's not bad, and also right now there's a lot of specs in the meta that are like self-healing or group healing as well.
That's true.
So I do feel, but I feel like that's something that's kind of weird about Grievous, right? Is that like every season it changes how much of a pain it is, depending on how that changes. I don't know. I mean, I think Volcanic. I understand why Volcanic went as well. Like that affix was a big outlier in the.
It was too easy.
There's nothing going on direction, right? Like.
I mean, so I got a couple thoughts on that. Like, I think Volcanic and Storming are kind of equal impact on melee versus range, just different. Melee or range based on the affix. Like, if they're going to remove one, they might as well remove the other. But also, like Grievous was nerfed so many times to where direct heals took off a stack. It really wasn't that bad. I mean, healers that are learning to play, it was probably pretty overwhelming, but once they got a grasp on their class, I think it was, it's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, I would be down for removing Grievous if they were trying to cut down the number of healer intensive affixes, but
then they introduced like 3 more. So
yeah, exactly. Like Explosive and Afflicted are like giga healer affixes now. So
I don't even think your healer can hit the Explosive. Like what?
Right? No, they heal it.
Word.
Damage.
That's why it's a healer
even more healer affix.
It's like a huge HPS increase requirement.
Ah, yes, of course.
So yeah, I don't know. It's tough because so there was when they first posted these 3 affixes, right? Like the blurbs of how they worked, there was a big knee-jerk community response of like, oh my god, this is awful, right? And
Was that fair?
I think I think, first impressions are fair in the sense that like they're first impressions, right? But like we want to be careful to make sure that what we're actually evaluating when we're talking about the affixes is not that first impression or that vibe, and it's like actually how they're playing and testing.
Yeah.
But yeah, from that, trying to keep aside that initial first reaction, I still am not. I'm very not jazzed about incorporeal or explosive right now. Those are affixes where I'm, like best case not playing those weeks next season unless they change by more than half of what they currently are.
Yeah.
And worst case, just not playing next season as much at all as a result, which I don't know. It's sad because like new affixes and affix shakeup is something that when we read that post, the title is like new affixes in season
Revamp.
we're like, oh my god, this is so good, right?
Yeah.
Like and so it sucks to have gone from that to like, wait, go back. This is going to be worse than season 1.
Yes.
Which I don't know though. It's PTR, right? Like there's already been a 30% nerf on explosive. Like there's definitely still time for them to fix this. So
yeah, that's the good thing
hope
is
they
there is
do.
time, and hopefully people are actually testing. There's not a lot of people testing this time around because there's so much going on in the game, but I mean, hopefully they get some good feedback. It is just so weird to me that all the feedback is like, hey, we're tired of playing Sanguine bolstering, for 6 years, and then they take out like the bearable affixes, Grievous and Volcanic instead.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that what you said earlier about the impact of affix is just, I mean, it's still too high. Like we didn't move anywhere. I mean, we got new affixes. Cool. I'm glad that we got new affixes. For the record,
I think Afflicted is a good example of an affix that looks like it's going to be kind of the perfect amount of changing and fun and not too bad. So
yeah,
I don't know. Again, let's see how this develops. Let's see what the hot fixes between now and next week are on this. That'll be cool.
All right. So next up, we got tip of the week. Dratnos, you have a link for your tip of the week.
I do. Yeah, you go ahead and pop this thing open. This is the Essence of Divination. You can scroll up and actually see what exactly that this thing is. You can purchase this for 2,000 elemental overflow from a vendor in Morkut Village, the main hub of the Forbidden Reach.
Yeah.
And when you use this, you get a buff for the rest of the day that you get warning about which of the rares are about to spawn. So you'll get a different whisper that will tell you which of the rares are going to be. And then you can go and, catch it as it spawns and not fly and show up just as it's dying if you're late to get to it. It depends on what kind of shard you're on. But if you're on a shard where these things are dying as you're getting to them, consider this investment in your future. And you'll have an easier time hunting down those rares if you need to.
This is one of the most useful things to be added since the Flight Master's Whistle. This cannot be more worth.
Not as good as the Flight Master's Whistle, no.
This cannot be
more
worth
it. Lot for sending me the tip on this tip.
More worth it starting out on the island needing keys while it is active. The vignettes pop up 2 minutes before the mob spawn too. Amazing.
Yeah, I think it just shows up on the map. Yeah.
This is a weak aura, but purchasable with currency.
Yeah. Well, it's better than a weak aura because it shows you before they spawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Basically, it's an add-on. So,
yeah,
like you pay a currency for a daily add-on, or you could just get an add-on that tells you when rares are going to spawn.
But that's against the spirit of my World of Warcraft. That's a hack.
Well, either way, I do think it's a good thing that they identified that there's quality of life they could put themselves into the game and not rely on other people to make.
Yeah,
and it just costs 2,000 overflow, which at this point that's like 2 rares worth of overflow that they drop. So that's cheap.
Okay, Trell, what is your tip of the week?
All right. Transitioning from Dratnos' tip to my tip, as usual, we're going into Mythic Plus. Mine is about the Inquisitors and Court of Stars this week. So I realized the other day that probably not a lot of people know this, but this mob has been bugged since the start of Legion, since it was first put in the game. It's the big Inquisitors that go around the courtyard in court, and their Searing Glare cast is interruptible, but you'll probably have some memory of like it going off even though someone kicked or you never saw a cast bar, and that's because it's been bugged for the longest time to where if you ever silence the mob or stun it like right before or during its cast, it'll just finish its cast no matter what. And usually RNG kills someone. Some of the time you'll live if it's like a low Turnicle key or something, but
So there are ways to be able to interrupt it if you don't have the cast bar, right? Like, say the eyeballs start summoning themselves and you like kick into it, you can interrupt it, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like if you kick, even though there's no cast bar, it'll actually interrupt it. I believe in any scenario, if you see the eyeballs pop up. But it's like its cast bar isn't attached to its actual ability in some way. So like any kind of silence effect will just delete the cast bar, but the cast will go off. So if you're a prop paladin or a
Yeah.
boomkin with beam or a hunter with wailing arrow, you have to avoid
Freeze.
silencing the mob at all
A
costs.
shadow priest with silence as your kick.
Yeah.
Do not kick that mob if you're the shadow priest. Yeah.
Yeah, it just like prevents half the classes from participating in, doing the mechanic, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But that's been a bug. I guess it's not getting fixed. It's almost done with this whole season, so it's probably good to be aware of.
Been about since Legion, so I mean, I doubt they're fixing it yet. Okay. For clip of the week, bang. We had a POV of Drogo, and the title of this clip is Palitech, but I don't think that the Paladin is the most important thing here. So he's pulling mobs through the wall into Nylash, which is the second boss in Shadow Moon Burial Grounds. The big thing, though, is pulling trash into this boss is actually pretty decent, right? So whenever the mob goes into this soul sever phase, and you come out, not only like if you have mobs that are pulled in advance, not only are you getting a damage buff, but in addition to that, the mobs will be evading for a couple of seconds and then they'll be stunned for like 20 seconds beyond that. And so if you get that pull set up in advance, it allows you to be able to just do an intense amount of damage and honestly kill off a trash pack relatively freely because those dominators are not going to be active, not going to be fighting you. It's a bit tricky though, right, Trell? Especially like getting the pull set up, getting kicks on everything. There's also weirdness with like the evading.
Yeah, so the way Drogo was doing it there was he wasn't even pulling the dominators. He only pulled the Exhumer with Divine Toll through the wall. There's a Divine Toll talent that like casts a shield every few seconds after you press Divine Toll, and that's what he's using to pull through the wall.
Okay.
So he's only pulling the one caster and leaving the dominators there. I don't know what they did after to the dominators, but like that's not that dangerous. If you do all the trash into the boss, that's when it's really dangerous because the two dominators like spam cast, until the intermission where they become basically dormant for like 30 seconds. But if you can make it to the intermission, and then it's super efficient, and that's what you see in MDI. Every team does it.
Cool. Would you ever recommend players do this? Or do you think it's like,
I don't think it's worth on live. Like, first of all, there's evidence of people two chesting 27s and 28s without doing that.
Sure.
And second of all, it's very buggy. If anyone dies, there's a chance that the entire pack just evades or bugs out on threat for like 30 seconds.
Okay. Not ideal.
It is very efficient though, if you can pull it off reliably.
Yeah, it's one of like 10 different great strats in Shadow Moon that I would never just recommend to anybody unless they were like, hey, I want to do something fun and fast in Shadow Moon, because you can just hold W and time the keystone with much less danger, right?
Two chest it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was our
All right,
tip of the week. So now let's move on to some Q&A. We have a longer Q&A today. First off, we have Uza from Discord, and he asks, given the latest affix changes, do you regret ever asking for affix changes?
Yes. No, not really.
No, hope springs eternal, It's I think something that the initial set of the affixes definitely it's been bad news on the last week for what we've seen, but it's not it is PTR, right? Stuff is there to get tested, and yeah, I still don't regret asking for them. No.
I'm happy that they're making efforts to change them or to improve the experience in some way. I think this first step is definitely in the wrong direction. I think maybe I'll change my mind, but I think the majority of the community would rather see seasonal come back and then a whole other row of affixes be gone, or maybe even both of the rotational affixes be gone.
I think this is a step in the wrong direction in the sense of like these, like if they went live today, these would be like really bad affixes. I do wonder if like we can get these affixes into a state where we'll actually have improved the quality of the season.
That's absolutely possible, right? Like explosive, literally just go back to old explosive.
Go back.
And that's like probably, the explosive was maybe annoying, but probably fine at that. And then like incorporeal is the only one of the other two that needs substantial, or the other three that I think needs like substantial levels of changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Fizzles Wiz in Discord asks, my question is for the more casual players out there who are struggling to find a main until late into the season, where the ship might have already sailed for them, progress-wise or whatever. Do you guys feel like you share an identity with your main, or is it more of a raid/spec fit? And then what do you suggest for those wanting to keep up but struggling to choose a main? Travis, I think that you probably are the person who plays the most characters. Do you have an advice?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a little weird, right? Like not having a main until late in the season, or the seasons where you kind of feel like off balance, and you swap from like one thing a month into another, and yeah, I guess the main thing is like having a main character isn't something that like if you are having fun trying out different specs or whatever, you just go next season, right? You just literally be like, okay, this is fine, right? And then next season actually have something that's like gets super geared. But at this point in the season, like if you have like a couple different characters that are 400, like none of them are probably going to end up actually getting 420 or whatever. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I would just not have that goal probably. I don't know. It's tough. Like I've been in seasons as well in the past where I've kind of had like a few medium characters instead of one good one, and I definitely enjoy that less. But sometimes it's just kind of unavoidable.
I mean, for me, I obviously just like have pretty strong ties to my main character, so I don't really worry about like I play alts, like, and we do splits and stuff like that, but those are always alts, right? And if I'm looking to main swap, it's normally because Moonkin is just turbo trash some season, and like that's happened in like Nihilotha, that kind of thing. But in reality, it's more like I would say that I share identity with my main. I care about playing balanced druid every single season, at least in some capacity. So I don't really have this problem.
I'm like between you guys. I'm like Tettles some seasons, and I'm like Dragonhouse other seasons. It really just depends on how Monk is tuned sometimes, but also like what I am doing in the game. Like I'll bounce back and forth between pushing high keys or doing a tournament, or just like focusing on raiding for a little bit, and so I typically keep my main geared, which is usually Monk, for like the first half of a season on average, I'd say, and then I just push it through whatever content I want, being my best geared character while also playing alts. And then like at that point in the season, sometimes I'll play a different character as my main. Like right now I'm playing Paladin because it's just more fun for me right now, and it's also really, really good in Mythic Plus, so I'm just having a good time with it.
Tell you want to know something funny? He literally logs into Paladin a week before 10.0.7. He goes, I'm done playing this fucking Brewmaster thing. This Paladin's broken. Then he shows up like the week after the patch, and he goes, oh, this is a great decision.
Yeah, I passed my Monk and score within like 7 days of starting playing my Paladin or something. The thing is really good.
Okay. Another question, kind of similar in the similar vein. When is the right time to class swap? I guess my general advice for class swapping is just like whenever you're finding a class like fun or compelling, or you find the desire to play the game more just because you want to play that class more, I think then is about the right time to class swap. Now, this kind of depends on like what level of player you are. Now, if you're a player that's like hardcore or you care about meta, obviously the right thing to do is class swap pretty frequently and make sure that you're able to get it geared in a reasonable pace. But for most players, it's just like kind of whenever you're having fun.
Even if you're trying to play at a high end, like there's a lot of people that or just play one class, or like only play one class unless it's awful, and then play something else, and that's totally fine too, right? Like at the end of the day, it's the thing is like, what are you going to have more fun by doing, right? Now, if you're going to have the most fun by being in a super high end guild and being as valuable as possible to your guild or whatever, and you are able to multi-class effectively, like, and you're able to play within a couple percent of as well as you play your main spec on an off spec, then it can be correct to swap pretty frequently. And that's what people do in like the very highest guilds, right? Is you
have like two people.
Even that, like even now though, a lot of the very highest guilds have actually moved away from this somewhat, because now everybody's just like the mage player just got 8 mages or whatever, and it's actually kind of restrictive, and they can't swap as easily. So
true. Yeah.
Even in both of your guilds, like we only have like 2 or 3 people who are like actually like flex
Yeah.
on their main for next tier.
Right, even like Liquid and Echo, right? Like THD plays Warlock every tier, right? Fired Up plays Mage every tier. Roger Brown plays Hunter every tier, right? And it's like, yeah, you know, they can play other stuff. They have had alts that have, you know, maybe 1 out of the last 10 tiers played something else, but pretty much there are players all the way up to the top that just play one thing every time, and it's if you're a tank especially, or a healer to a lesser extent, it's usually a little bit more valuable to be multi-classer if you're trying to do super high-end stuff. You know, if you're trying to do MDI, being a multi-classer is valuable. But
Yeah,
a lot of people don't enjoy multi-classing. Like a lot of people don't like it. So
Sure.
but if you do enjoy it, on the flip side, then do it because it's fun, right? Not because it's a competitive advantage. But yeah, other than that, like if you are looking to, if you're like most people who has like a main spec and then a few alt specs that they're kind of good at, the right time to swap from your main spec to your alt spec is like when your main spec is real bad.
Yeah, sure.
Patch. Like that's like the times that tells you have played something other than Moonkin and M+ in the season, right? Like BFA season 2 M+, right? And you're just like, look, I'm not going to be able to play within a couple key levels of what I want by playing this Moonkin thing, right? So I'm playing something else this season.
Yeah. I mean, it's just how it is. That's really the situation that I get forced off my main. It's whenever it's just awful.
And to clarify, like that shouldn't ever happen, right? Like whenever you get like hard forced off of a class like that means Blizzard screwed up. But like they do that from time to time, so you want to be ready for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say they have been doing better with that recently, with tuning frequently, but that is like a staple of WoW. Is like sometimes your class is going to be beans, and multi-classing really improves that experience.
Next up, a question from Honduras in Discord who asks, how would you guys feel about having a rolling rotation of dungeons in the Mythic Plus pool? 2 dungeons out and 2 new dungeons in every month or so on a cadence. What are your initial reactions?
I don't think that would be good. I think that even the like a full swap of 8 every 6 months is a lot of like brain overhead for relearning, and that's for like us that play the game a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're playing the game less often than us, but you're still trying to do 15 or higher keys, so like you have to kind of know what the mobs do, right? Obviously, like if you don't really need to know what the mobs do, and you can just kind of guess based on what the swirly looks like or what the ability name is called, or just ignore most of the mechanics, you know, then swapping out dungeons is just nice for variety. But like if you are trying to actually time like reasonable-ish level of keys, it's a lot to learn from swapping in a dungeon. I think doing it on a monthly cadence would be a lot of overhead. I think the pace they're doing right now is already as fast as I'd be comfortable with, and I wouldn't have minded if it was slower than this in terms of how much they rotated. But I do think it's better than like 8 dungeons for 2 years.
How do you feel about casual, like turbo casual players then?
Yeah, those players maybe would enjoy just like having like one of 50 dungeons in the pool that they could get when they get a keystone, right? And it's just like always variety, right? But
well, from a tanking POV, I think this is way too much for the casual tank player. Like that, there's no way you could just learn, or you know, like have the knowledge of like 20 different dungeons across a year, and like know how to route them, especially on different affixes. You know, like I think if they got rid of the affix system, maybe this would be okay. But I don't think in this current world it would ever be okay.
All right. Next question from Scrubadub in Discord says, do you think that the rank 1 title for M+ would be better if it was spec-based rather than just overall-based? Might encourage more spec diversity from the top-end community as they battle to raise the meme specs to the top.
So they have that in they have that for Solo Shuffle, right? The title's based off of ladder performance. I think it's based off of like spec ladder performance for Shuffle, right? It's not based off of absolute cap. I'm not positive on that. I don't know. I think that my initial reaction is like it depends on the season. So some seasons that there are like 2 to 3 specs that are like super dominant. Say the last season of Shadowlands, where it was just, you know, Hunter Warlock, every single group, not really much else. I think it would maybe be better if it was like that. But I think for most seasons, especially whenever there's a little bit more parity, it's better just top 0.1% as a whole.
Yeah, I don't really have much of an opinion on this one. I would be curious though how many people of each spec would be in the top 0.1%.
So there would be more Arms Warrior spots than there are Sub Rogue spots.
Yay.
Is what a quick search of Raider IO is revealing to me. First of all, okay, the way that this would work, I think, is that DPS specs, like the 3 DPS spec classes, would have a lot less slots for each spec than like the hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going through each Raider IO spec and kind of looking at how many people there are in there. There's 3 times as many Havoc DHs as there are Sub Rogues that have like done a key. There's 2 times as many Havoc DHs as there are Arms Warriors that have done a key. But like, I don't actually think that really well represents the difference between the specs at the high end in terms of like how they do at metagame share, right? Like, there are actually way more Sub Rogues than there are Havoc Demon Hunters at the high end, right?
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
that's true.
I don't think that this system. I think that would be a exploitable part of this system that I wouldn't like. Not necessarily exploitable, but just like a weird part of the system is that based on how popular your spec is among the people doing +5 keys, that affects how many spots there are for you at the top end meta. But the top end meta is like very different.
Yeah, that's.
I think if there was like if it was like normalized to the top end instead, like if the population was just, not top 0.01% or 0.1% of all players, but top like 1% of players that have 2K score or higher or something like that, maybe that would be fixed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it could be a cool way to like, because ultimately what you want, right, is you want the required score for the less popular specs to be higher or to be lower than the more popular specs, right? Like that is what you either want that or you want the same requirements, but people have swapped over to the less popular specs, which would also accomplish something good. But like, looking at the numbers that the specs have of like logged runs right now, I don't think that would be the outcome.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I like the idea in principle.
I think that you're right. I think it would be interesting in principle, but I don't know in practice like how reasonable it would be. Okay, last question. Cal in Discord asked, given the opportunity, or given the discussion on the latest episode about tier acquisition and how raid is clearly better, but there's M+/PvP only players upset that it still feels like a requirement, would a possible solution be a different acquisition path for both PvP and M+? This acquisition path would give identical tier pieces, but they only work in the content you got them from. Raid pieces would still be able to be used for all content, while Mythic Plus tier only activates inside of M+, and PvP acquired tier only activates inside of PvP. This is actually, I think, a better solution than some of the ones that we've seen in the past.
I mean, it's not a bad idea.
There's a question about the vault.
It's not a it is one that has been suggested quite a bit. Like this general idea is one that it's not like Blizzard's unaware of this being an option, right? They just have decided that they don't want to like let you get your tier from M+ and from PvP, making it only activate within that content. I think if they were going to give you tier from M+, it would be worse if they had that restriction than if they didn't, because like I feel like that would be really annoying, right? Like now it's like, oh, I zoned into raid, I've pulled my boss. Oh crap, I don't have my 4-piece active because I have my 6-item level higher M+ helmet on instead, right? So I feel like adding that level of gear swap between content, like something that they were very reluctant to do with PvP, but hasn't been too costly because there's a lot of people that are PvP only or PvE only, was that whole you have a different set of gear between PvP and PvE thing. But having a different set of gear between M+ and Raid, where it's like this helmet literally doesn't work in one versus the other, I do think that's like a big line that they don't want to cross. And I understand why. If they were only willing to put tier in M+, if they also cross that line, would I want them to do it? Maybe that'd be worth.
I think it
would still be a lot worse than just giving regular tier from M+.
I think that this discourse probably stems from like the conversation that we had last week about would they ever be willing to make a PvP to M+ only tier set bonus, right? I think that's where this question itself
I think that would be
comes
much
from.
worse than this. Like this is better than having like a different set bonus between M+, PvP, and Raid.
Yeah.
But I still think this is a lot worse than just letting tier drop from M plus if they wanted tier to drop from M plus, which they don't, right? Like the problem is that this still doesn't just address the problem that they don't want that. Like they don't want to give you that from that, right? So like
Mhm.
we can come up with all these good ways for them to do it, but that it's just not something they want to do.
Yeah, I think if they ever change their mind, there's a couple ways they could do it to make Mythic Plus like gear for Mythic Plus only players. But yeah, I think they still view it as like a feeder version of the game to the main game, which is Raid.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think they correctly identify as well that there's like M plus is a lot lower maintenance than Raid, right? Like it's a lot lower commitment to go do a key. There's a lot of people where if the rewards were equally good between Raid and M plus, they would just M plus, right? Because M plus it's easier to find a group. You don't have to schedule it, right? Like, so they want Raids to have better rewards or special rewards or time limited special rewards that then become available to everybody or whatever, because they want people to go Raid, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no reason that 20 people would wait until all 20 were on and then go Raid instead of just doing groups of 5 doing M plus, except for the fact that the Raid gives better gear and gives like tier gear and stuff. So that is something they don't want to go away from. I do think that people like it wouldn't be the end of the world if people just raided a little bit less. But the problem is like if you're in a raid group where like 15 people really like raiding and 5 people really like gear and raid because of it, and then
Sure.
you make this change, those 15 people that really like raiding are now not raiding because the 5 people that really like gear aren't raiding either because they don't have to. So I can see why they've done it this way, but I do still think they should make it so you can get more tier from M plus.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd lose much of the rating population if you created Mythic Plus as an equal system by itself.
I mean,
I think that rating is such a big commitment that anyone who's doing it right now kind of wants to be doing that anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but
yeah, I mean, and to be fair, like it's not a bad thing if somebody who is rating now but doesn't want to stops rating and is doing M plus instead, right? It's not even a bad thing from Blizzard's perspective. They're still playing WoW. It's only a bad thing if enough less people start raiding that raid dies off for the people that do want it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I could see why they wouldn't want to risk that. I do think it's a non-zero risk, but I don't think it would be that big a risk if they made it so you could get tier from M plus if you were like an M plus main. But yeah, that is the ultimate the issue is they don't want to risk that.
All right. Any final topics? I think
that's going to be it for our final topics here. Yeah, sorry about my internet issues. Hopefully, those of you watching on YouTube or you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it later and it's not had some like awful cuts in the middle. There's some editing genius that solved it. So that's very good.
do any editing geniuses want to read off the Patreon list?
Sure. Our wonderful patrons are the people who've made it possible. Who, you know, if we could just get 20 or 30 more patrons, then I'll be able to upgrade my internet and you know stay on the air next time. So please to patreon.com/Titanforge. Wait, is that where it is? Patreon.com. Yeah, patreon.com/Titanforge. That's where to go. Okay, so some of our favorite patrons include Paul. Blizz, please make us zoomy instead of giving us a snare for M+. Oh, that would be cool if there was an affix that sped you up.
Yeah. Be down.
But then what was the bad thing it did? Okay, what if it was literally just it sped you up, but you still had to go and break your speed up, right? It's like you got like a 20-yard circle that you're super fast in, you're zooming around in it. You can dodge mechanics and stuff super easy in it. You could get somewhere really fast, but if you don't get out by the time it expires, it stuns you.
All right, 20 yards, I'm not in, actually. No, never mind.
Well, if it's 20 yards and you're speed boosted, you get out of it faster than the 10-yard that you're slowed right now with entangling.
It's making a compelling argument. I hate it.
I don't know about that.
I hate it.
Quick maths. How many times will my guild go on hiatus at the end of a tier before I go and find a new guild? Nevernude, Ja, King of Skills, Dratnus' Dino Pillow, Chromed, Trekkie, Chewy. Diablo 4 has issues with 3080 Ti, beware. ZivXX, Salty Senny, Necris, Sinmora, Tank Dill, Nevuk, Eevee, Unholy DKs Rise Up, No Trick, I Forgot I Was Subbed Here, Dimat, Freehold Waiting Room, Rework Mistweaver, 3 for the Elven Lords, Nyx, 1 token to rule them all, 1 token to find them, 1 token to bring them all and in the darkness bind them, token, like a WoW token.
I don't
They're
know.
thinking of the Omni token.
Oh, the Omni token. Okay,
the
I get it,
Omni
I get
token.
it.
Oh shit. Okay.
Okay. Gallic, Brusive, Dratnos Abyss. Like and subscribe if Dratnos mispronounces Ziskera this week. Is it Ziskera? How's it pronounced? They
I
pronounce
have
it
no
in game.
idea.
Ziskera. I don't know.
I feel like it's
Ziskera.
Ziskera. Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like
If
we
you're gonna put a Z next to an S and then a K afterwards, that's 3 consonants in a row.
Zisk-
I shouldn't get penalized. However, I pronounce that. I don't know what to tell you. Msanity, Xena, Rogue is now good enough for Prague, still bad enough to be sat for SLG. Bless up. Red Color, YouTube.com/Workbringer, Alphabet Soup, Druid Friends of Evolved Gaming, #1 Simsky for Trelsky. Lurka still manages to make raid in key groups while being on the other side of the planet. What's your excuse? Milk, Sife, Pone, Windwalker Monk Steel with nerfs by rolling with the punches. Thesaurus.com is a powerful tool.
Mhm.
The Marsh Hare, Veil Strider Spar. In Before Blizzard brings back Stonecore for 10.2 so they can keep their streak of seasons with the Worm Boss alive.
This is so
Dickhead Small
cursed.
Brain.
This is the most cursed name, man.
Yeah, you got to change that name. The Worm Bot. We cannot speak this into existence.
Stonecore.
Also, I feel like Stonecore, if they were going to do it, this season would have kind of tied in, right? Like,
Yeah, actually.
kind of tied in with the
Underground dungeon.
Thematically.
current vibe.
Yeah.
Narnar TV says hi to Uncle Carmine, Agitar, Juniper. Voker is now V Phoenix again because pink class equals damage. Is that V Phoenix the Ret Paladin?
Yeah, it's the
perhaps?
paladin. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, because Evokers and Paladins can both tank or heal, or DPS or heal, so I didn't know if it was but I assume it's DPS. Marth, please save me while I'm in my Rune of Power. Rat Run, I'm just a notch in your bedpost, but you're just a line in a Titanforge podcast. Chauncey, that moment when your tank says, now where's my ranged at during Jade Serpent Dragon Boss and bricks your key. Feral Druids in the MDI, you've got to be kidding me. And oh, you don't have that yet? Boom. And Sire Dematicus.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Boom. I don't know. It's MMMBOOOM exclamation point. That's 4 consonants in a row. I really should not be criticized however I do that.
You get a double mulligan on that one, actually.
Yeah, that's way too many. Anyways, that's all of our Patreon supporters, and I think that's it for our show as well.
Yeah.
We will return next week, barring any. I don't see why not. Next
I don't
week,
see why
probably.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's not, check our Discord or our Twitter. But should be back next week, and we'll see you then.
Bye.
GN.
GG's.